Today we are going to be taking a look at the best game that Levy Rosman, aka GothamChess, has ever played. This is an insane game, and Levy just played a really nice game. This game was against Emilio Cordova. He's a 26-24 GM, and Levy was 24-17 back then. I don't know his rating now, but yeah, this was in 2018, where Levy was close to his peak. So Emilio starts with one knight f3, d5, c4 is the typical ready gambit. Here the main line is d4, which Levy chooses, and now b4. b4 is kind of a weird opening because usually if they play like e3, the point is you want to play c5 and then strengthen your center, and often these structures are just simply like a Benoni. But here with b4, this can get quite dicey. Now c5 is the main line here, the Michel gambit. A lot of people play this, and white advances, and white gets like some nice space, and black has some trouble developing, and it's not like a typical Benoni because black rarely ever gets e5. So, but against b4, Levy chooses like a really dynamic option, g5, and this is actually one of the main lines, actually a good move. This is a gambit invented by David Navarra, and if he takes, the point is e5, and you're just a bit better here, honestly, because like d3, and now just simply bishop b4, you're getting your pawn back, and this knight is kind of weird, you have the open g file, and white's position is just a bit destabilized. But he does not do that. He spends 48 minutes on queen a4. Now I think they were playing 90-minute chess with 30-second increment, just a normal like tournament setting. So he spent almost all of his time on this move, which is crazy that he just did not know any theory against this. Like usually if you remember theory, you're like spending maybe 5-6 minutes or something, but he was clearly not remembering theory. He clearly came up with this move on the board, which is kind of impressive actually. But yeah, c6, just defending, because if you go something like bishop d7, you block your queen in, and now this pawn is a target. But bishop g6 is still fine, obviously, but it's not that good. So c6 is the best move, and you could potentially aim to play b5. But this bishop would rather go to like f5 or something, and you want the queen open. So queen to b3, he just goes back. Bishop g7, and now knight g5. Now he decides that he's going to take, because if Levy continues with e5, now he's going to simply have queen to g3, which is a nice move. He defends his knight, and he has some threats. So yeah, I'm sorry, he decides to take, but e5, that is actually exactly what happens. Queen to g3, and now white is actually a bit better. So if black just plays like a natural move, for example, if black just plays like queen to c7 or play knight d7, now boom, 96, and black is almost losing. But he plays queen e7, which is not the best move, and here actually it's plus 0.8, which is normal. It's a grandmaster playing an international master, so obviously the grandmaster got a good position of the opening, but Levy is up a lot of time, because remember, he spent 48 minutes on queen a4, which is crazy. Usually tops, you think, for like 25 minutes, but yeah, knight e4, and this knight actually stands quite good on e4, and Levy now has really not that much compensation for the pawn. The best move is bishop to f8, but he chooses king to f8, because if you go bishop f8, you're just going to have a passive position. But now that he chooses king f8, this is a bit more fighting. Even though it's worse, it's still more fighting, because you keep your bishop developed, and you keep your position intact. And if you just play bishop f8, you're just not doing anything. So king f8, and now b5. And really, Emilio is playing this really perfectly. Levy has made some mistakes actually in the opening, but Emilio, although being down a lot of time, is actually playing a really good game. Now knight to d7, he's just developing, and now white is almost winning just because his king is so weak here, and he's up a pawn. b6, bc6, and now bishop to a3, and this kind of gives away the advantage. He should have gone for queen f3 to kind of target this king on the f file. He didn't do that. He goes bishop at a3. And now this gives c5, and now the advantage is only plus 0.5. So Levy is actually doing fine right now. But now he chooses queen f3, and this is now getting dangerous for Levy. But he chooses bishop e7, which is the best defense, and he's pinning this knight, and he's kind of sniping at the position with his pieces here. But e3 now gives up the entire advantage almost, because it's just way too slow. He should have played something like knight to c5, with the idea that if you take, now knight d7, and this is just winning. And if you take, then now simply bishop c5, and this, and you simplified the position, and you're up 2 pawns, even though blank's going to get a pawn back, but you're just way better here as white. But yeah, e3, and here Levy chooses knight g to f6, which is the idea he's developing. He probably wants to play king g8 and like advances the h pawn to do something with his rook here, because obviously he can't castle, so he wants to use rook on the h file. Maybe he's even ideas of like rook h6 and bringing his rook over like this. Bishop d3 gives up now the entire advantage. Now it is fair game. Either side can win this, but it is 0-0s on the evaluation bar. And Levy plays rook to c8, which is a fine move. Rook e8 was better, but rook c8 is also completely fine. And now castles. And here Levy played a very, very cool move. He played h5. Now the idea of h5 is that he can castle, so he wants to do something with his rook, as I said earlier. And maybe even wants to put something on g4, but we don't know that quite yet. Queen f5 is chosen, and now h4 is the best move with the idea of rook h5. Like h4, you have to play h3, or else like if you just play like rook d1. Now rook h5, queen f3, and rook to g5 is coming in. So you have to play like h3, and now the same thing basically, just but here it's a bit worse somehow. I don't know why, just because like h3 isn't available. But yeah, this would not be good. He should not allow this. But queen f5, he plays rook h6 though. Rook h6 is also a good move, but h4, which is then way better. Rook h6 with the idea of going to the g file and then eventually playing for like h3 and like using his bishop here. f3, which intends to defend his position, but doesn't actually do that. It just kind of weakens his position. Here, again, h4 is the best move because f3 was kind of a waste of time, and now this is just coming in. But Levy plays rook to c6. He's really a fan of moving his rooks up, but you can clearly see maybe his idea here was to play something like knight to h7. Or not knight h7, maybe it was to take, and then to play rook to f6 or rook to g6, and you really penetrate with these rooks here, the king. But queen to h3, and again h4 is the best move, and now he plays it. So h4 is the best move for a long time, but now he actually plays it. And Emilio here has to play knight g5. This is the only way to retain some play, but even this is just bad. Yeah, I mean, he takes, which is just a bad move, and now knight takes f6. And this is actually almost winning for Levy here. It is minus 1.55 if bishop f5 is played, which he does. And now he has to realize advantage by playing knight h5, which is kind of a weird move actually, because if you don't know the idea, then you're just sitting there thinking, what does that even do? So, to my knowledge, it gives the f6 square for probably this rook. Maybe there are some sacks here on g3 to get the pawn here. And you're opening up this queen, so this is probably just a move to try to attack and get some more pieces into attack. Which, as I'm explaining it, makes much more sense, but coming up with knight h5 in the game is insane. Because usually when you move the knight to h5, you know, you're trying to put it on f4, like in the King's Indian, or on g3 or on any other square. But here he just says no targets. You have to realize that knight h5 isn't about the knight, it's about the rook, the queen, and the other rook. But he does nothing of that. He plays king to g8, which gives up a bit of the advantage, but it's still very much good for him. Here, bishop c1 is the best move, which is insane. But like, I guess like a natural move, like rook to e1 is now -2. all of a sudden for knight h5 again. So he takes on d4, which now Levy is basically winning. It's -2 if he plays knight h5. But he doesn't do that. And now he gives up the entire advantage, and it's almost back to equal. If bishop c1 again, bishop c1 is, I guess the idea is just to play d3. But black has a cool move d3 himself, which is pretty badass because of takes. Now bishop c8, and the queen is trapped. Because he played f3, now the queen is locked out. And even if none of that happens, you have to see, like, this queen is just terrible. It is doing nothing. But yeah, he chooses king f2, which is a big mistake. It now gives Levy the advantage completely back, and Levy is now winning after rook to h5. This is -3. First of all, he's putting some eyes on the bishop, and he probably wants to bring his rook into the game. Now, if rook e1, which seems natural, just simply queen to c7, and this queen just has a lot of scope. These rooks are going to get scope, and this is just almost over. So rook to h5, rook e1 is actually played, and queen d6 he plays here, which does make a bit more sense because you're stepping off the 7th rank, your queen is no target there, and it's just a bit more centralized. But the bad thing is here, you're kind of pinning yourself. I don't know how important that is. Not very important, obviously, because you're completely winning. But yeah. Now d3. d3 is just aiming to stop this pawn, and maybe he does want to play bishop c1 now. But simply bishop h6, which stops bishop c1. Levy saw that he wants to play bishop c1, because I don't know what would even be a natural move here if he just played like rook b6. Now bishop to c1, and he's actually kind of equalizing here. So he has to play bishop h6, because now bishop c1, simply bishop takes, and if rook takes, now queen to f4, and this is just a simple fork. Nothing too special here. But he now plays rook e4. He's just trying to sack material because he is up a pawn at the end of the day. So if he gives up in exchange, it's not the end of the world if he gets some good piece play for it. Because this pawn is actually weak, these pawns here, and this pawn could also be weak. So he's saying that he could maybe salvage his position. But this is nothing. Levy simply does not call, Levy just calls a bluff, and he takes, f takes, and now simply queen to e5, queen f4 with pin director, king g1, and then like rook to f6. This is completely winning. But queen e5 obviously also winning in this position. King e2, he's trying to do something, but now the last great move, rook takes f5, which is a great move. If queen takes, then simply queen h2, and he's getting here. And this king is just too weak, getting absolutely crisscross applesauce. Queen g4 check, simply rook to g6, it is over. And after rook f5, he does actually go queen f5, and this actually happens. I keep getting variations, and that actually happened. Yeah, so queen f4 just returns. He has some threats here. Queen f3, queen g5. He obviously does not trade queens. If he does, this is still completely winning after rook g6, but it's just a bit unnatural to trade queens here. So just go queen g5. King d1, and now rook to b6, and now he's getting in here, and look at all of these pieces doing their job. This pawn can't move. This is amazing. King to c2. The king tries to escape, but his opponent just simply walks into the mate with now bishop c6. This is an insane move. It's just so simple, but this is just mate. He has to play like king d1, now rook b1. If rook b1, there's queen d2 mate, so he has to play king c2, and now queen d2 is mate, or he plays he has to play king c2, but now rook a1, king b3, rook b1, bishop b2, rook b2, king a3, rook b6, queen f4, take, g3, queen c1, checkmate. This is the thing here, and it's just mate. And this was an amazing game played by Levy. He played like this really aggressive and cool opening, and even though he's playing a GM, he did not budge, and he simply played king to f8, which is such a gangster move, and he kept fighting even though he's worse, and then he just simply an attack, and using the h4 is such a great move. I mean, come on, just locking the queen out, and then the use of the rooks here was amazing. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe please, and comment what you think of this game, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.